She had nothing but the clothes on her back and the heartache in her chest. Zara sat on the cold, wet sidewalk, staring at the passing cars, wondering if today would be the day she was invisible forever. Little did she know, her life was about to change forever, because someone in a suit was watching her every move. The sun had long since dipped behind the towering skyline, leaving the streets bathed in a dim, artificial glow. Zara's bones ached with fatigue, but she couldn't bring herself to move. The world around her rushed by in a blur, men and women in suits, their faces glued to their phones or buried in their thoughts, walked past without sparing her a second glance. The city never stopped. But for Zara, the city had already forgotten her. Her eyes were heavy, her stomach growling from hunger, but Zara didn't have the energy to find something to eat. Not tonight. She had been here for days, stuck in the cycle of trying to survive, asking for handouts, scrounging for scraps, and watching life go on without her. She wasn't even sure why she was still trying. The idea of a future seemed laughable now, as though her past had already erased any possibility of a happy ending. Her worn-out sneakers scraped the pavement as she shifted her weight, a soft sigh escaping her lips. She had nowhere to go, no one to turn to. Her family had disowned her years ago after she left home to escape the suffocating expectations of a life she didn't want. Since then, the streets had become her only companion. It wasn't a life she ever imagined, but it was the one she had, and somehow, it had become her new reality. Zara pulled her thin jacket tighter around her shoulders, trying to shield herself from the biting cold that seemed to seep into her very soul. She wasn't sure how much longer she could keep this up. The days were beginning to blend together, each one a carbon copy of the last. The same hunger, the same loneliness, the same fear. As she sat on the curb, staring at the busy street, her thoughts wandered back to the girl she used to be, the girl with dreams, with hope. The girl who believed she could escape this. But those dreams had long since died. All that was left now was the shell of a woman who had nothing, not even the energy to care. Then, something shifted in the air. A figure crossed the street, his footsteps deliberate. Zara's gaze instinctively followed him, her tired eyes tracing the figure of a tall man. He was sharply dressed in a tailored suit, his movements confident, almost purposeful. The type of man who could be anyone, rich, successful, and certainly too important to even glance at someone like her. But something stopped her from looking away. There was something in his eyes. A curiosity, a sense of something else she couldn't place. For a brief moment, their eyes met. Zara quickly looked down at the ground, her heart thumping in her chest. She wasn't used to being seen, not like this. People looked past her, around her, but never through her. The man stopped a few feet away, his gaze lingering on her for just a second longer than Zara was comfortable with. She felt exposed, vulnerable, but she didn't move. It was as if something in the way he looked at her had frozen her to the spot. She fought the urge to pull herself together and act as though she didn't care. She fought the impulse to shrink back into herself. But just as she was about to look away, he spoke. "Liam, are you alright?" The words hit her like a shockwave. The sincerity in his voice was unmistakable, and it threw Zara off balance. People rarely spoke to her like this, especially not in the middle of the street, in the cold. They didn't see her as a person. They saw her as a beggar, a shadow, a thing to be avoided. Zara blinked, trying to gather herself. Her voice caught in her throat, but she forced the words out. Zara, so hesitant, replied, "I'm fine, thank you." She immediately regretted the words. Why had she said that? She wasn't fine. She was far from fine. But the impulse to lie, to cover up the truth, had been ingrained in her long ago. But the man didn't seem convinced. He took a step closer, his expression softening. His dark eyes studied her with a kindness she wasn't used to, and for a fleeting moment, Zara felt her walls crack. She fought to keep herself together, to remain cold and indifferent. Liam said gently, "You sure? You don't look fine." Zara's heart skipped a beat. No one ever noticed, and those who did never cared. Yet here he was, standing in front of her, not with pity, but with something else. Concern, maybe. "Zara, I'm just tired." She glanced at the sidewalk, her throat tightening. "I don't need anything." Liam didn't seem to accept that. Instead, he looked around the street for a moment, then turned his gaze back to her. "Liam, I was just about to grab some food. Why don't you come with me? It's the least I can do." Zara froze. She couldn't remember the last time anyone had offered to help her. Not like this. Her instinct was to refuse, to pull away. But then she felt it, a strange pull in her chest, an unfamiliar yearning for something, anything, different. Before she could stop herself, the words came out. Zara said softly, I don't know." Liam smiled, and this time, there was no judgment in his expression. Just a quiet patience. "Liam, no pressure. But I'm getting some food anyway. You're welcome to join me. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. Just, come." Zara hesitated. The streets had been her home for so long that trusting anyone felt like a distant memory. Yet, for some reason, in this moment, she felt a sliver of hope she hadn't felt in years. "Zara, okay. I'll come." They walked in silence to a nearby cafe, the bustling city still alive around them. Zara felt a strange comfort in the warmth of the cafe, the soft music, the clink of cups. It was so different from the cold pavement she was used to. She sat across from Liam at a small table near the window, feeling self-conscious in her worn-out clothes, surrounded by people who seemed so far removed from her life. She felt small, insignificant, yet Liam treated her as though she mattered. Liam smiling, breaking the silence, "So, you're not from here, are you?" Zara looked at him, confused for a moment. Why would he ask something like that? Zara said quietly, "No. I used to be." Liam's eyes softened. He didn't press, though. He simply nodded as he picked up his cup of tea. "Liam, well, I'm glad you're here." The words didn't make sense to Zara, but she couldn't help the warmth that spread through her chest. No one had ever said anything like that to her. She had become so used to being ignored, avoided, that this small act of kindness left her reeling. The next morning, Zara awoke with a lingering unease that clouded her thoughts. She had never been one to sleep soundly, but the dreams she'd had the night before were more vivid than usual, dreams about the night Liam had helped her, and the strange connection that was beginning to form between them. It wasn't just about the food, the money, or the clothes he had offered her. No, something far more complicated was beginning to stir inside her. Lying there in the warmth of the bed, Zara's hand instinctively went to the small locket around her neck, a keepsake from her mother that she had worn since childhood. It was the only thing she had left of her family, and despite everything, it was the one thing she could still hold on to when the world felt too overwhelming. Her thoughts were interrupted by the shrill sound of her phone buzzing on the bedside table. Without thinking, she reached over and answered it, her mind still half lost in the fog of the night. "Zara." It was Liam. Her heart skipped a beat. "Hey, Liam." "Good morning." His voice was warm, familiar, yet there was something different about it today. A sense of urgency, perhaps. "How did you sleep?" he asked. "Good, yeah. I'm getting used to it, I guess." Zara shifted in bed, tugging the blanket around her more tightly. There was a pause on the other end. "I'm glad," he finally said. "I was thinking about what you said last night, and I think it's time we talked more." "Talk more?" Zara sat up, suddenly more alert. Was he planning to help her more? The thought of it both excited and terrified her. Liam continued. "There's something important I want to show you." Something that could change everything for you, Zara. She hesitated. Was this another chance? Another fork in the road she had to choose? There was still so much about him, about his intentions, that she didn't understand. But the idea of something new, something more, stirred something deep within her. What is it? Zara asked, her voice trembling with uncertainty. I can't explain it over the phone. But trust me, you'll want to see this. There was a pause before Liam added, I'll pick you up in an hour. Be ready. Zara stared at the phone for a long moment after the call ended. What could he possibly want to show her? She had never been one for surprises, especially when they came from strangers. But in her gut, Zara knew one thing, her life was already shifting. Liam had begun to mean something to her, more than just a benefactor. Something else was at play here. The hour passed quicker than she expected, and before she knew it, Zara found herself standing outside her apartment building, her heart beating faster with every second that ticked by. She had dressed carefully, but nothing felt right. She didn't feel like herself, not entirely. She hadn't felt like herself in a long time. When Liam's sleek black car pulled up to the curb, she couldn't help but notice how effortlessly confident he looked. Dressed in his tailored suit, his hair still perfectly in place, Liam looked like a man who had everything under control. As the door swung open, he greeted her with a smile that made her stomach flip. Ready? Zara nodded, a nervous laugh escaping her lips. I think so. She climbed into the car, the interior smelling like fresh leather and something faintly floral. The car was silent for a moment, and Zara could feel Liam's gaze on her, as though he was studying her, trying to understand her in a way that nobody ever had. It made her uncomfortable. She wasn't used to being observed, especially not by someone who seemed so untouchable. But she forced herself to calm down. Liam broke the silence as the car began to move. I know this might seem strange, but what I'm going to show you today is a step towards something much bigger than you might think. Zara frowned, trying to make sense of his words. What are you talking about? You've been through so much, Zara, Liam continued, his tone serious. But I think you're meant for more. There's power in you that you haven't even begun to tap into yet. Her brow furrowed. Was he talking about money? Influence? Or something else entirely? Before she could ask, Liam turned to her, his eyes narrowing slightly. What you saw in the lantern, it's only the beginning. There's more to your story than you realize. You just have to choose to see it. As they drove through the busy streets of the city, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that she was heading towards something she couldn't control. She didn't know what it was about Liam, but there was an intensity in his eyes that both drew her in and made her want to run. The truth, he had said. There was more to the truth she had uncovered. More than she could ever imagine. The car pulled up in front of a building she didn't recognize, an old, towering structure that loomed over the street, almost forbidding its presence. Zara's heart skipped. Why had they come here? The building looked abandoned, desolate, as if no one had touched it in years. Liam got out of the car first, and Zara hesitated, her instincts flaring. She wasn't sure about this, she didn't know what he had planned. But something inside her told her to follow him. Come on, Liam called, sensing her hesitation. I promise you, you won't regret this. Reluctantly, Zara stepped out of the car, her breath catching as she looked at the building again. The air felt heavier here, as though something ancient lingered in the walls. As they entered the building, Zara's senses heightened. The dusty scent of old wood and stone filled the air, and the dim lighting gave everything an eerie glow. She followed Liam down a long corridor, her footsteps echoing around them. At the end of the hallway, they reached a large, old wooden door. Liam turned to Zara, his expression serious. You're about to see something that will change everything for you, he said, before pushing open the door. Inside, the room was filled with old artifacts, books, paintings, strange relics Zara couldn't identify. And there, standing in the center of the room, was a large wooden chest. Liam stepped forward, his eyes gleaming. This is it. The key to understanding your future. Zara swallowed hard. What's inside? He smiled, his voice low. You see. You're ready. The air in the room seemed to thicken as Zara stared at the chest in front of her. The uncertainty gnawing at her insides felt almost unbearable. What could be inside that chest? Was it something more than just another one of Liam's extravagant promises? She had to admit, the pieces were starting to fall together in a way she couldn't explain. There was something different about him, something compelling, but at the same time, it was like stepping into a new world, a world she wasn't sure she was ready for. Liam's eyes didn't leave the chest. He seemed almost hypnotized by it, his expression filled with a strange reverence. This, he said, his voice barely a whisper, is the answer to everything you've been searching for. You'll understand soon enough. Zara took a cautious step forward, her pulse quickening with each movement. She felt as if she were being pulled into something larger than herself. It wasn't just the promises of wealth and success anymore, there was something darker, deeper about Liam's words. Something that hinted at power far beyond what she could fathom. She paused in front of the chest. It was old, its wood carved with intricate designs, but the most unsettling thing about it was the faint, almost imperceptible hum that seemed to vibrate in the air around it. Zara glanced up at Liam, who now stood a few feet away, watching her with an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. Are you sure? Zara's voice cracked slightly, betraying the unease she felt. What's in there, Liam? What are you really asking of me? Liam smiled, but it wasn't the reassuring smile he had given her before. This one was tinged with something more cryptic, something she couldn't quite place. The truth. You've already seen parts of it, haven't you? The lantern showed you some, but not all. Now, it's time to understand it all. Zara's heart raced as she reached out, her fingers brushing the surface of the chest. The hum grew louder, and she could feel a strange energy emanating from within it. She hesitated for a moment, her mind reeling with the weight of his words. She had never imagined anything like this would happen when she'd agreed to meet Liam. But now, as she stood there, it felt like she had crossed a point of no return. With a deep breath, Zara pushed the chest open. The heavy lid creaked as it lifted, and inside was something that took her by surprise. It wasn't gold, jewels, or anything material. What lay inside was a single, ancient-looking book. Its cover was a rich, dark brown leather, cracked with age, and the title on the spine was written in a language she didn't recognize. This is, Zara's voice faltered, her eyes wide as she turned to Liam for an explanation. A record, Liam said softly, stepping closer. A record of all the secrets you've been searching for. A record of the ones who came before you. People like you, Zara. People with the potential to change everything. Zara didn't know what to say. She had thought she was stepping into a world of wealth, of glamour, of the kind of life she had always dreamed of. But now, the weight of what Liam was suggesting seemed much heavier. This book, it was more than just a key to a new life. It was the key to something far more complex and dangerous. And she could feel it in her gut. Why me? She whispered, her voice hoarse. Why did you choose me? Liam's gaze softened, and for the first time, Zara saw a flicker of something real behind his eyes, something vulnerable. Because you're not just any girl off the street, Zara. You're different. I knew the moment I saw you. You've been through things that have made you stronger than most. But now, you have a choice to make. Open the book, and you'll learn everything. But be warned, once you do, there's no going back. The truth will consume you, just as it has consumed me. Zara's hands trembled as she lifted the book from the chest. It felt impossibly heavy for something so small, and the air around her grew thick with tension. As she held it in her hands, she realized that this wasn't just about her future, it was about something far bigger than her. Something that could change the entire world. Her mind raced as she stood there, torn between fear and curiosity. What would happen if she opened the book? What would she learn? Could she handle the truth that Liam seemed so eager to show her? And what did he mean by consumed? I don't know if I can do this, Zara said, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam stepped closer, his voice soft and persuasive. You've already started, Zara. You can feel it, can't you? The power, the pull. The book is waiting for you to make your choice. I won't force you, but I can promise you this, once you understand the truth, you'll never be the same. Zara swallowed hard, her eyes fixed on the book. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, her breath shallow. But a part of her, something deep inside, knew that there was no turning back now. She had come too far. Without another word, she opened the book. The moment Zara opened the book, a wave of energy surged through the room. The temperature dropped, and the dim light in the room seemed to flicker, as if the air itself was charged with electricity. The pages of the book, though old and brittle, were inscribed with a glowing script, shifting and changing before her eyes. The characters danced on the pages, twisting into familiar shapes that Zara could almost understand. Her fingers traced the ancient text, each word carrying a weight that seemed to pull her deeper into the world she had just entered. Do you see it now? Liam's voice broke through her trance, soft but urgent. Do you see the truth? Zara's eyes were wide, her breath coming in short gasps as she stared at the pages. She could barely comprehend the words, but there was something about them, something that felt like it was unraveling the very fabric of her reality. The letters seemed to respond to her touch, shifting in meaning, as if they were alive, waiting to reveal their secrets. I don't understand, she whispered, her voice trembling. What is this? Liam stepped closer, his eyes fixed on the book with an intensity that almost seemed hungry. This is the history of your bloodline, Zara. It's the record of everyone who has come before you, your ancestors. But it's more than just history. It's a map, a guide, showing you the path you must take. It's the key to unlocking the power that resides within you. Zara's mind raced. This was impossible. She had never known anything about her family's history beyond the basics, her mother, her father, a few distant relatives. Nothing like this. She had never been told stories of power or ancient legacies. Everything in her life had been ordinary, uneventful. And yet, here she was, holding a book that spoke of something greater than she could fathom. The pages continued to shift before her, revealing strange symbols, diagrams, and images that made no sense. But one thing stood out. In the center of the book, there was a symbol, a circle with an intricate pattern etched inside it. The symbol seemed to pulse with energy, glowing brighter as her fingers hovered over it. It was as if the book itself was beckoning her to understand, to unlock its secrets. Liam, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. What is this symbol? What does it mean? Liam's face tightened, and for the first time, Zara saw a flicker of unease in his eyes. That, he said, his voice low and careful, is the mark of the eternal covenant. It's the reason you were chosen. It's the reason the lantern called to you. Zara's head spun. The eternal covenant. Chosen. Her mind couldn't keep up with the words. But something deep within her stirred, a feeling, a pull that made her shiver. It was as if the book was alive, and it was calling to her, urging her to understand. You're not just anyone, Zara, Liam continued, his voice now full of intensity. You have a legacy, a power inside you that has been dormant for generations. The lantern showed you glimpses of it. But now, you must choose, do you embrace it? Or do you walk away? Zara's heart pounded in her chest as she closed the book, the weight of his words settling over her like a storm. She wasn't sure what she had expected when she first met Liam, but this was beyond anything she had imagined. Was she really part of something larger than herself? Was there hidden power inside her, waiting to be unlocked? And if so, what did it mean for her life, for her future? I don't know if I can do this, Zara whispered, her hands shaking as she held the book close to her chest. I didn't ask for this. I just wanted a chance at a better life. Liam's eyes softened, and for a brief moment, his usual mask of control slipped, revealing something human. I know, Zara. I know. But you've already made the choice by opening the book. The path is set. The question now is whether you have the strength to walk it. Zara stood there, the book heavy in her hands, her mind racing with possibilities. What had she gotten herself into? She had wanted more, wanted a chance to escape her ordinary life. But this was a different world, one filled with power, danger, and dark secrets. Could she handle it? Could she be the one to unlock the mysteries hidden in her bloodline? The silence in the room stretched on, broken only by the faint crackling of the fireplace. Zara's gaze flicked back to Liam, who stood motionless, waiting. She could see the weight of his expectations, the trust he had placed in her. He was offering her the world, or at least, the chance to change her destiny. But was she ready for it? What happens next? Zara asked, her voice trembling but steady. Liam's lips curled into a small, knowing smile. Next, Zara, you make your choice. You can walk away from all of this, return to your life as it was. Or you can step forward, embrace the power that's waiting for you, and face the dangers that come with it. But know this, once you choose, there's no turning back. Zara's gaze fell back to the book. The symbol on the page seemed to pulse, as if alive. Her heart thudded in her chest as she contemplated the path ahead. Could she really turn back now? Was she even capable of living a normal life again after this? But then, something inside her shifted. A feeling, a pull, she couldn't explain it, but it was there. This was her chance. Her only chance. She had been given a gift, a power, and with it came the responsibility to change the course of her life, to make something more of herself. The future was within her grasp, but only if she was brave enough to reach for it. Without another word, Zara made her decision. She opened the book again. Zara's heart raced as the ancient words on the pages of the book paused under her fingertips. She had made her decision. There was no going back now. The weight of her choice pressed heavily on her shoulders, but with each beat of her heart, a sense of clarity washed over her. This was it. This was what she had been waiting for. What she had been destined for. Liam watched her closely, his expression unreadable. His presence in the room was intense, his expectations hanging like a heavy cloud. He had said there would be a test. A final trial to see if she was truly ready to embrace the power within her bloodline. The room around them seemed to grow quieter, the air thicker. The flickering light from the fire cast long shadows across the walls, and the rustling of the wind outside seemed distant, as though the world was holding its breath. Zara could feel the air shifting, almost as if the very space around her was reacting to her decision. The book's glowing script, which had been still moments before, now seemed to glow brighter with every passing second. Liam's voice broke the silence, low and urgent. You've chosen, Zara. Now, you must face the consequences of that choice. The test is simple, yet it will determine everything. Do you have the strength to walk the path you've opened? To claim your place in this world, or will you fall to the darkness? Zara looked up at him, her breath shallow as she tried to steady her nerves. What do I have to do? Liam stepped closer, his face barely illuminated by the firelight. You must make a sacrifice, Zara. A choice that would define who you are. There is a key to the power you seek, hidden within the world, within yourself. But it's locked behind your deepest fear. You must face what you fear the most, and only then will you be able to claim what is rightfully yours. Zara's heart clenched. Fear. What did he mean by that? She had never thought of herself as someone afraid of anything. She had survived so much, living on the streets, fighting for survival, never giving up. But now, faced with a choice that seemed to stretch beyond the physical realm, she couldn't help but feel the pull of something much darker. The world she had been thrust into was no longer one she understood. It was bigger, more dangerous, and her fear wasn't just a passing emotion. It was a force, a shadow lurking in the depths of her mind. "I'll do it," she said, her voice stronger than she felt. "I'm not afraid of anything." Liam's eyes softened, just for a moment, before he spoke again. "Fear doesn't always come from the things you can see, Zara. It's not always the darkness outside. Sometimes, it's the darkness inside. You need to face your demons, your past. Only then will you be able to unlock the power that's yours to claim." Zara's mind reeled as his words sank in. Face her past. Her demons. She had fought so hard to leave her past behind, to escape the pain and the fear that had haunted her. But what Liam was suggesting felt like an impossible challenge. Her past wasn't just a set of memories, it was a shadow that had clung to her for as long as she could remember. How could she face it? How could she confront the ghost that had driven her to the streets in the first place? The room seemed to grow colder, and the book in her hands paused, its energy now wrapping around her like a living thing. It was calling to her, urging her to open herself to what lay beyond her comfort zone. The light from the book flickered like a flame, casting strange, fleeting shadows on the walls. "Look inside yourself, Zara," Liam said, his voice soft but compelling. "The power you seek is locked inside your own heart. Only by facing your deepest fear can you truly claim what is yours." Zara took a deep breath. Her mind spun, her thoughts racing as she tried to make sense of what Liam had said. The thought of confronting her past was terrifying. She had spent so many years trying to bury it, to erase it from her memory. But now, standing on the precipice of something greater, she realized that she could no longer run from it. It was a part of her. A part that had shaped her, broken her, and yet, ultimately, had made her stronger. The darkness within her began to swirl, memories of her childhood, her parents' abandonment, the years spent struggling alone, the pain of being invisible in the world. She had lived in the shadows for so long that the thought of stepping into the light was overwhelming. But deep inside her, a small voice stirred, a voice she hadn't heard in years. It whispered of strength, of resilience, of the power to change her destiny. "Show me the way," Zara said, her voice trembling but resolute. "I'm ready." Liam stepped back, his eyes glowing with a mixture of pride and something darker. "The way is already within you," he said, his tone heavy with finality. "All you need to do is open your eyes. Open your heart. And let the fear inside you guide you to what you seek." Suddenly, the ground beneath Zara's feet seemed to shift. The shadows around her deepened, stretching and twisting as the room transformed. The book's pages flared open, and Zara found herself standing not in the room, but in a vast, dark landscape. The air was thick with mist, and a cold wind cut through her, sending a shiver down her spine. Before her stood a towering figure, a dark, faceless shape that seemed to loom over her. It radiated power, an energy that pulsed through the air like a storm. Zara could feel the weight of it pressing down on her chest, suffocating her. It was her deepest fear. "I see you," Zara whispered, her voice barely audible over the howling wind. "I know what you are." The figure didn't move. Instead, its presence grew stronger, the darkness around her thickening. Zara's heart pounded in her chest as the shadows closed in, threatening to engulf her. But she didn't back down. She had come too far. She had made her choice. With every ounce of strength she could muster, Zara took a step forward. Her body trembled, her heart racing, but she kept moving. The darkness pressed in, but with every step, the shadows seemed to shrink back. "I will not be afraid," she whispered, her voice growing stronger. "I will face you. And I will overcome you." The figure's form began to dissolve, fading into the air like smoke, until there was nothing left but the mist. Zara stood alone, breathing heavily, her heart still pounding in her chest. And then, as if by magic, the mist cleared. She found herself standing in a vast, golden field, the sun rising above the horizon, casting its light over the land. She felt different, lighter, stronger, as though she had shed a weight that had been holding her down for so long. The book, still clutched in her hands, pulsed with an even brighter light now. Zara knew that she had passed the test. She had faced her fear, and in doing so, had unlocked the power within herself. But the journey wasn't over. Now, the real challenge would begin. Zara stood at the entrance of the grand hall, her heart racing, her every breath a reminder of how far she had come. The storm outside was nothing compared to the one raging inside her. She could still feel the weight of the ancient relic in her hands, its power thrumming against her pulse. But it wasn't just the relic she feared now, it was the truth about who she really was, and what her destiny was meant to be. The ballroom was now empty, the guests long gone. It had been hours since the storm had trapped everyone inside. Zara had spent that time contemplating the fate of her family and the legacy of her bloodline. All she had learned over the past few weeks had come rushing back to her, filling her with both dread and hope. The relic, it turned out, was not just a tool of power. It was a key to something far darker, something far greater than she could have ever imagined. And now she stood at the precipice of that unknown, knowing that her next move would seal the fate of the world. Zara was no longer the scared girl who had wandered into this mansion days ago, trying to understand her purpose. She was a force in her own right, the one who had survived every trial, every confrontation, every betrayal. She had earned the right to wield the power that had been passed down through her family for generations. But power came with a price, a lesson she had learned time and time again. Behind her, the storm howled louder, its fury growing as the minutes passed. She could feel it, the relentless energy of the storm now mirroring the conflict within her. Her heart beat louder than the thunder. She could no longer run from what she had learned. She could no longer hide behind the excuses of fate. The final decision lay with her. She had once believed that her purpose was to protect those she loved, to stand as a shield against the darkness. But as the relic paused in her hand, she knew that her true purpose was far more complicated. The relic had not chosen her to protect, it had chosen her to transform. As Zara stepped into the heart of the hall, the ancient stone beneath her feet seemed to hum, resonating with the energy of the relic. The door behind her slammed shut, and she heard a voice from the shadows. "You've come far, Zara," said a familiar voice, one she had not heard since the day she learned the truth about her family. It was her father. Zara spun around, her heart skipping a beat. There, standing in the center of the room, was her father, once thought dead, his eyes glowing with the same unnatural light as the relic. His figure was ghostly, barely solid, a reflection of the curse that had consumed him. "Father," Zara whispered, her voice trembling. "But how? You're supposed to be gone." Her father's smile was cold, distant. "You've unlocked the truth now, Zara. Everything you've been running from, it all leads to this moment. You're no longer just a daughter of this bloodline, you are the legacy, the power, the curse. This is what we are, Zara. What we always were." Zara took a step back, the weight of his words pressing down on her. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What does this all mean for me? For the world?" Her father's face softened, though his eyes still carried the haunting glow. You are the key to the end of it all. You always were. But now you must make a choice. You can either destroy everything, your past, your bloodline, this cursed power, or you can embrace it. You have the ability to change everything, Zara. To rewrite destiny itself. But the choice is yours. A cold chill ran down Zara's spine. She could feel the weight of the relic, its power and its curse. The thought of destroying it, the thought of destroying her family's legacy, terrified her. But what would it mean to embrace it? To use the power for herself? She closed her eyes, feeling the pull of the storm outside, the storm within, and the storm that raged in her heart. This was her moment. The final battle. She had come so far, faced so much, and now she had to choose. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. You are the key. Zara opened her eyes, staring into her father's glowing gaze. With a final breath, she raised the relic above her head, the storm raging louder as the power coursed through her. And then, she made her choice. The ground shook beneath her as the relic's energy exploded into the room, sending shockwaves that rattled the very foundation of the mansion. Her father's form flickered, his eyes filled with both pride and sorrow as he faded into the storm, his last words hanging in the air, the world will never be the same, Zara. And neither will you. Zara stood alone in the center of the room, her body trembling with the force of the power she had just unleashed. The storm outside had stopped, and the world felt eerily quiet. In her hands, the relic had transformed, no longer just an object of power, but a symbol of the choice she had made. The mansion around her seemed to breathe, the walls alive with the energy of her decision. Zara could feel the pulse of the earth beneath her, the weight of the power she had inherited. But she was no longer afraid. No longer unsure. The truth had set her free, not from the relic, but from the fear that had once held her back. She had made her choice. And the world would never be the same.